My humble respect to Guru Mahan, Guru Piran Sivasankaran, Guru Piran Nyo, fellow Jnanis. Today I'm going to continue the essence of the Katha Upanishad. It's a very important Upanishad that we, in the scriptures, as I mentioned, it goes back, many years. And we don't know who wrote it, but it is written by great saints and sages like Mahan that reflected upon life and reflected upon the universe, reflected upon the concept of God. So here we've been covering this for several weeks, and in this we have a nice story that these great saints try to infuse this knowledge of self-realization. And Mahan himself has said that for everyone to look at their own religions and attain enlightenment. So within each of that, there are some great things. And he says that if the Vedantists realize the meaning of what he has studied, he may shine, in a beautiful way. So for me, this Upanishad is one of the earliest Upanishad that I researched on, and while I was practicing Mahan's meditation and studying his I got philosophy, I found that this scripture was very, very profound, and it gave me a lot of insights into the knowledge of the self and also the knowledge of the universe and God, and also I think gave me very good deep insights into Mahan's philosophy and other great philosophies. So here we spoke about how this Upanishad is about three important characters. The first is Vajasravas, who is, a person who is, follows the scriptures, but also very, very ritualistic. And he was supposed to embark on a sacrifice. And in that sacrifice, he is supposed to give good things that he has acquired over the year. And so we saw Vajasravas and the qualities of Vajasravas. And while he learned a lot of things, he didn't put it to practice. Rajasravas had a son called Nachiketa, who was a young boy who learned from the father all the various teachings and the scriptures and so on. And the boy was observing what the father was doing. And again, he questions the father on some of the father's behavior. And of course, the father gets very angry and tells him that he should, and the boy asks, if you're supposed to give all the best things, and I am supposed to be one of the best things, or maybe the best thing that you have, who would you give me to? And the father, in a rage and anger, he says, I'll give you to the Lord of Death. And he did it in a state of annoyance and unhappiness. And the son took it upon himself. Yes, my father has given me an instruction, so I shall go. And of course, the father regrets that. And but anyway, the boy goes to the um, the palace of the Lord of Death. And as we saw, that the Lord of Death was not there, and this boy had to wait for 3 days, waiting for the Lord of Death. And when the Lord of Death comes in, he asks, "Who is this boy?" And it's very interesting that he asked, "Is this boy's time for him to come here?" And what was really fascinating is that this boy, it was not his time, and he was very surprised that normally human beings, if it's their time, they don't want to come. We had to drag them. They'll give all kinds of excuses. But here, this boy, it's not his time, and he's come here. And more profound is that he waited for Lord Yama without taking any food, any drinks, and sleep, waiting to meet Lord Yama and to know some key essential things about the universe, God, self, about death. So Yama was very, very amazed by this. And Yama also knew that to keep an innocent person waiting, particularly one who is of a divine quality, is a sin. So he gives the boy 3 boons. And the boy said, great, I will take the boon. And normally, whenever we are given the boon, most people ask for material things for their own desire, meet their own desires and self gratification. But this boy was not such, because he had a particular quality which was very unique. And that's the quality that this Upanishad tries to teach, that the qualities that one needs to have to acquire that knowledge of the self from the Lord themselves. So, of course, we spoke about boon one. Boon one is that he asks that his father to be happy, because the father was not happy. The father, is liberated from all those clutches of, materiality, and also the father would welcome him in the way that he left, but with a greater warm heart and more positive and more divine. So the first boon is that he asks for someone who is suffering, and which is a very important quality. Is um, that Lord Yama was very surprised that he didn't ask for himself, but he asked for his father who was suffering. So for me, this is a very important boon, that sometimes all of us are given privileges in life, whether we have good parents that can give us a comfortable home, education, we have a good job, we are blessed with a good family, good partner in our lives, and so on. So we are blessed with many things in our lives, and this blessings comes with a great responsibility. And so here, these blessings, we should be grateful. The gratitude to be able to the privilege comes with responsibility, not just for ourselves and our family, but the people that are struggling, what we call last, least, lost, lonely, right? And so that was a very important quality of this message that this great saints were trying to infuse, that if you want to attain mukti, if you want to attain enlightenment, if you want to know the truth of life, one needs to have a liberal mind and a generous heart, like the Jnanavallal, that what they acquired, they give it back to people and nature. So this is a very important quality that I learned, that how Boon One teaches us to transition from being selfish to selfness, and I'll talk about selfness in Boon Two, and then that leads to selfless, and ultimately leads us to the self-realization state. So this is boon one, and Lord Yama was very pleased and gave him the boon. And then boon two, we also saw where he asked, I've heard that there is this practice that if you practice this, that you can attain the heavens, where there is no suffering, there is no the mental stress, there is only state of peace and bliss and so on. Can you show me that? And Lord Yama said, yes, I can show you that. And he teaches him this practice of how one can attain this the selfness state, which is how do one transition from that external material life to that internal divinity that is embedded in all of us. So he teaches him this practice, how to prepare the body, how to ignite, to be aware of the DNA of the divinity, divine nectar of awareness of the divinity, and how to keep that mind anchored on that so that it neutralizes this material identity that causes all those challenges and torments. So here, Nachiketa then learns this very, very quickly because his mind is pure and divine. So he picked this up really well, and he tried to acquire that nice, liberating feeling. And Lord Yama was very, very pleased with the intensity of this practice that this little boy put, and even said that even the devas, yearn for this Vaigunda, and but you have acquired this, very, very quickly. You followed my instructions. Because of that, I'm going to give you a supplementary boon, which actually will, from now on, will be called the Nachiketa fire. Whoever practices this will acquire this mind that is peaceful, liberated, and heavenly qualities. So Nachiketa said, okay, great. Thank you very much. And now we move to, then he says, okay, I want to, so Lord Yama said, okay, ask for your third boon. And this is what I am going to cover today, the third boon. So boon 3 is actually about the insights into the phenomena called death. He wants to know now what is death, and he asked this question to Lord Yama. Well, of course, Lord Yama oversees all the death. Okay. So in this, it's very interesting that he then says, okay, uh, he wants to know what is this death. Everybody is so afraid of death, and what happens. So he says that when they die, you come and take their lives. So what do you do with them? Where do you put them? Is there a big vault where you put their lives away, and what happens? So this is the kind of a probe that he's going to ask. And I want you to look at the line of questions that Lord Yama has Nachiketa has for Lord Yama, and the reaction of Lord Yama to these questions. So in this, Nachiketa asks, when death occurs, there is always the debate on whether anything, i.e. the soul, continues. So this is a common question that most people have. Do we have afterlife? Is everything end after this? Or, what happens, right? Even this is among great saints and sages also, they have debated and discussed this. Even the devas in many of the Puranas and the stories, they too ask this question. So here he says that some say it does, there is life after death, and others say it does not. So there is two schools of thought here. So he said, I beg to be enlightened by you so that I may know the answer. So he's searching for the answer. He says, this is the third boon that I ask. So again, so he's asking this third boon of what happens after the death. And there are a lot of debates, right? So here, so what Lord, Lord Yama then says, this is quite, I didn't expect this boy to ask this question, because, this question, even the great devas never ask this. They only ask for heavenly stuff, right? So in this, that what is, you'll see he'll allude to acquire this knowledge, one needs tremendous, intensity of the mind, because Lord Yamathani is going to ask him more pleasurable stuff, because he asked for his father, then he asked for this heavenly stuff. Maybe he will start asking for, niceties of life. And so Lord Yama was quite stunned, but also quite taken up by this question, right? So again, what he's asking is that he wants to know the knowledge that gives him good insights into death, right? So here, when they say, he looks at, Lord, he looks at Nachiketa and he says, you're like the Virat. Virat is actually the universal divine form of that, the Lord itself. He says, and it's in a physical manifestation, of God. So that means you're quite divine. even that, he says that it is not enough. Even though he understands we are a manifestation of God, it is still not enough to really understand what that is. So, but to do this, one needs to have self-knowledge. So he says, okay, let's see whether this boy, so far he has asked good questions. He seemed to be very genuine, but he says before he gives, so Yama thinks very carefully. Before I give this boy this knowledge of what is death and what happens after death, I'm going to give a little bit of test for this boy. So in this, you'll see that he expected him to ask for other pleasurable things, but this boy did not ask. So he said, okay. He seemed to, have this position of a Vira, that means a divine, uh, you know, manifestation of this divinity. But he says, maybe this is not enough. I want to see whether he's really. So this self-knowledge is also like what he says, sharp like razor, right? So it gives you that strong, brave. Most of the strong, brave, and people very strong-minded take this path. But sometimes they too get distracted, right? As we've seen in many scriptures, great saints themselves get distracted, because of the alluring nature of materiality. So to acquire the knowledge of that, to understand that, one needs to have absolute freedom from materiality, right? And that absolute freedom leads to absolute peace and happiness. This universal peace sanctuary that Mahan talks about, right? So in this, he says, okay, I mean, he's on the right track, but I'm not sure if he really uh, is is uh, is ready for this. But I'm going to test him. So Lord Yama then goes on to do a little bit more testing for this Nachiketa. So he says, so far it's good, but even the greatest people, the strongest people, also tend to be distracted from this. So then Lord Yama says to this boy that, oh, Nachiketa, no, uh, even gods had their doubts. So you see, even the devas had their doubts about the question you have raised, the nature of self. So the Nachiketa asked about the nature of the self. Does it exist after death, or is it stops after death? What happens? So here, Lord Yama says very nicely that even the gods, have doubts of this. He says the nature of the self is very, very subtle, and it is very difficult to understand for mere mortals. So he says, I think it's going to be hard for you. He said, ask something else. Ask some other boon, and don't ask me this at the present moment. And Lord Yama says, please don't ask me this. Please release me from this question. I know I've given you the boon. Please don't ask me this question. Ask anything else, right? Because the nature self is really, really complicated. Even if you see in Mahan's teachings also, he says only the ones that are really, really intense will get it. But he says it's difficult, right? So the Lord Yama then says, don't ask this question. Ask something else. I will be able to give you. So very interesting how in our own lives, when we pursue the truth, the self, sometimes we think we are ready, and most of the time we are not ready, right? So let's see how Nachiketa fares to this question. So here, so Lord Yama then starts with alluring him to the materiality. So he says, okay, it's very difficult, but here it is. You can choose anything else, right? So he goes on to say that, uh, one of the things that you can do is because actually, if you see the earlier part, that Lord Yama uh, was actually very troubled to some extent about Nachiketa asking this question. Okay, and you'll see that he tries to distract him from asking this question, because anyway he gave him the boon, so he has to honor the word. But he says, okay, don't ask this question, ask something else, which I will be able to give you that answer very well. But he says, okay, choose. I know that you are still very young. He says that choose sons and grandsons. That means you can live as long as you want, because most human beings are very worried about death. They all want to live very long. He says that, everybody wants to go to Vaikuntha heaven, but they don't want to die, right? So he says, I give you long, long life, and he says that you want 100 years, I'll give you 100 years. You want to live 1,000 years, I'll give you 1,000 years. So, but don't ask this question. You can live beautifully, very nicely. I will give you lots of cattle, elephants. He's now alluring him not just with long life, but he's also alluring him to giving him the wealth. And I'll give you gold, I'll give you everything. Ask for a vast empire. And you go up to the mountain and see how far your eyes can reach, and I will give you land and everything else as far as your eyes can reach. So he says that, as long as you'll be healthy, how long you want to live, as long as you have all the material things that you want, I will give it to you. But don't ask this question, right? So it's very profound that, he allures, of course, a mere, an ordinary person will probably fall to this. And you'll see that Lord Nachiketa then says, Lord Yama, yes, I may live up to 100 years, but upon completing the 100 years, I will still have to die. So, but I still want to know about death. So even now, it may not be relevant to me, but I still will die. So, which means that I still won't know what death is. Even if you give me 1,000 years, at the 1,000th year, I still will die. So I still need to know the death. So it's really doesn't make sense of giving me a long life if I don't understand what death is, right? So, so this actually disappoints Lord Yamahita. He could distract him, and also he says that I'll give you all the cattle and the elephant, the well. He said that too will all end the day I die. So you can give me all these things, I can enjoy all these things, but that too will disappear upon my death, and I don't know still what death is. So, he gets a little bit taken back. Oh, this boy is really hard to really convince, to distract him, right? So, that response came to him, and from Nachiketa, which he didn't expect. Then he said, okay, if you can think of anything else as good as this boon, ask for it. So don't ask this anything better than than this boon. Ask, and I'll give it to you. Choose wealth, live a long life, be an emperor. If you want to be an emperor, I will grant it for you. So ask for anything that the gods or even men that of great valor, ask. I will give you that. I will make you the greatest person, right? So Nachiketa looked at Lord Yama, and he says, great, there are, many pleasant things in the world. Some of it is unattainable. So, but if you, this is Lord Yama telling Nachiketa, there are many things, many in the world that is fantastic, and most of it is unattainable. Even the gods and the devas have not attained it. But if you wish it, I will grant it for you. Right? He says, I will give you, young ladies, seated on chariot, playing instruments. They are beyond the reach of ordinary people. But if you want, I will give it to you, such girls, and they will be at your service. Right? Don't, however, press me to answer your question about that. Okay? if death is the end of everything, or if something like the self still continues. So he's asking about death, here. He says, don't ask about death. That is, what happens after death, or is there something that continues this? And so here, Lord Yama gets, afraid. And I'll tell you why Lord Yama gets afraid of this question, right? So Nachiketa responds, all these enjoyments are transitory, and they'll all exhaust the vitality of one's senses. Yes, maybe when I'm very young, I can enjoy all these things in my youth, in my middle age. But as I grow older, the law of nature takes hold where, I will not be, my sensory organs will start declining because that's part of aging. I won't be able to enjoy many things. Disease will still come, right? And Lord Yama said, don't worry, I will look after all that. He says, still, at the end, I will have to give up my body. I still won't know what death is. So even, he says that even what is considered the longest life is still short, even 1,000 years. At the end of 1,000 years, I still have to die. Or 10,000 years, I still have to die. It's still finite life. So he says the vehicles, the dancers, the singers, and this is so beautiful. He says that you are the master of materiality and alluring, right? And since you have offered this, and since you seem to like this, why don't you enjoy it? This is what Nachiketa was telling Lord Yama, that since you think this is fantastic, this is amazing, why don't you enjoy it? Don't, ask me for, don't give it to me because I'm not interested in it, right? So Lord Yama got a little bit more worried. See, this boy is not going to, let this go. He says, goes on, no one is satisfied with that. And since we have seen you, we will no doubt get wealth. We shall also live long as you rule, as Yama. Therefore, that alone is the boon. So he says that, yes, you allure all these things, but nobody is satisfied with wealth. The more wealth you get, the more you want. That's not what I want. He says that, wealth is not what is everlasting. He says that, even I want to be able to live long and infinite experience, right? Not the finiteness that you are giving me. Everything from life to all the experience is finite, mortal. But I'm wanting to know something that is immortal and infinite. That is the boon that I want. I want to know about that, right? So I ask for that. I do not want any other boon, right? So Lord Yama, in his mind, he was very worried now because he says that, and Nachiketa said, nobody is satisfied. Even you give me that, no great human beings will be satisfied with this. You say, you also mention all the devas and the great people, but they're never satisfied, right? So, so it may not be giving the happiness that I am seeking for. I want the knowledge of what happens to, is there something called self? Is there an immortal component of us? I just want to know that truth, right? So he comes face to face with Lord Yama, and he really presses him on this very important question of the self, right? And Yama took note of this. He says, even Lord Yama used to be in that finite world. He transcended to this plane that he knows the truth of what death is. So he says that, as a god, he enjoys certain powers, but these powers too, will only be for a stipulated period, right? So as long as Lord Yama rules, yes, he will be okay, but there'll be a time where you too have to give it up, right? So, he goes on to explain this in this. Who below on this earth, knowing that he is subject to decay? That means you know that anything on this material world has time. Time means there's birth and death. There is decay. right? And all the sensory pleasures, no matter how great it is, there is an end to everything, right? So if you choose a long life, even that will come to an end, right? He says that as long as if he has to know the immortal things, we're able to give this higher thing. So he says, I want to know this. Is there something that is immortal that exists in everything? So the answer then is that is there anybody that is transcend? If you take this material form, that is there anyone that attains this transcendentality? So again, uh, Nachiketa tells to Yama why he does not want these things that Yama is offering, because he knows that as long as he has these desires to want to live long and have all this enjoyment, that too will come to an end. All these are transitory. So he says that as a mortal being, you're giving me all this to be mortal, to be longer than mortal. But all this will also go through decay and death. And someday I will also need to know death will come to me. So I will have to know what that death is. So everything I possess will also disappear. He says that the very physics of nature is about sensory pleasure, and they tend to attract our mind towards this. And he says, and Nachiketa knows this really well, and he says that whatever you have offered, great. Some of them are rarest pleasures that many people don't have. But my mind is still very clear that even that will come to an end, right? So he has this dispassion, the viveka and vairagya, a quality in his mind as he presses Lord Yama for this knowledge of self. What is really interesting, so Yama now is thought he could distract this young boy, and he starts saying, okay, you know what? This has been debated a lot. And he starts now saying, okay, maybe I cannot get away from this, but let me try to explain to this boy why, to see whether he will shift his position. So uh, here it is that, he says, oh, that, Nachiketa says, people have always debated about whether there is a self or not. That's what I want to know. He says, the question is very important to me, for it is linked to the question of liberation. Right? You can give me all these material things, I can enjoy it for a while, but I will not be liberated. I am searching for that liberation. Or if there another world that we don't have to worry about all these things about death and so on. He says it's also difficult and the needs must. So it's difficult to understand. Ordinary human beings find it very difficult, but it requires a fair bit of investigation. That means introspection, contemplation, reflection, and meditation. He says at this point, so Nachiketa is telling Lord, it is a mystery to me. So please explain to me, since you are the Lord of the death. So you should know better about the death. So he says, I don't want any other boon. Just give me this boon, right? So he's not interested in all this pleasurable, transitory thing. He wants to know this mystery of this real identity, if at all there is, that is transcendental and everlasting. So that, in the end of man, what happens, right? So again, Nachiketa is not going to, he says, I'm not going to be satisfied with the short answer and what you're giving me. And here is what Lord Yama says. My dear Nachiketa, the great Nachiketa, he says, I am worried about the question that you asked. The reason why is that, number one, is that actually I don't play any role in that. Because Nachiketa is saying, what do you do with this? You take people's life. Is there a vault that you put? He says, while I am a gatekeeper, that's what most people think of death. Actually, I don't have a role at all. This will be revealed to you all over the next few chapters. He says, actually, I have no role. The human beings, think I have a role that take their life. And, there is this, you have to do good. You have a good, your afterlife will be very good. This is all that is an illusion. Actually, I have no role at all. Or the enlightened ones know this. The ones who are unenlightened think I have a role. Majority of them think I have a role. So I'm given that prominence. But the enlightened one know that I do not play any role in this because, that itself is an illusion. So you'll see as we go along, he says that I have no role for those who are self-realized. They will know that I am just a mirage for the ones that are unillumined. So Nachiketa say, if this truth is revealed, I have no more job. I have no more role in this place. So you're going to take away my job by revealing what that is and that I have no role in it. Right? I will lose my job. So I thought it was really profound that Lord Yama, acknowledges, because later on he'll talk about, in this next chapter, he talks about what dies and what does not die, who we are, what we are. And this is the one that part one in chapter 2, we're going to go between what is good and pleasant. There are two different things he talks about of human existence and how most humans get caught up with their material bodily. They ask for longer life and so on. And that's why they find it hard to let go things. So in this, Lord Yama, towards the end, he said, this boy is not going to shift, and shift his position. So I will need to slowly. So you see, you have to remember, Lord Yama was testing this Nachiketa to see, is he really interested in self-knowledge, right? Or is he just, like everybody else, want the niceties? And even though he had the qualities of acquiring this knowledge, Lord Yama was testing him to see, would he understand? Is it worth going through this knowledge with this boy, uh, that he will eventually realize the truth? So, one hand, he thought, okay, this boy has got qualities, but he says to take to the next level requires tremendous amount of stealth of a mindset, not to be allured by this material world, and how to divinize this material world. Does he qualify this? And towards the end of this chapter, Lord Yama realizes that this boy is not an ordinary boy. He wants to know the truth, and he wants to discover what that self is. So when I reflected back this chapter, I asked a few questions to myself. Why was this chapter very important, right? And so I went through here, Lord, this boy was, this great saints were trying to highlight the qualities that one has to have to know this knowledge of that self, to know what death is, and to know the transitory nature of life and the eternal nature of our existence, right? So he is, so this while so the great saints were trying to say that what are the preconditions for someone to really know this truth? And this is what for me was really profound. No ordinary person with caught up in this material world will find it easy to get it. But if they work really hard, they'll be able to, the truth will reveal to them. And this is what the point that this chapter is trying to get. So what did I learn? Key lessons from this chapter, right? One needs to have the mindset to realize the truth, right? Truth means what our own existence. You really need to uh, have that intensity of who am I, right? Not, okay, you get caught up with all these things. Okay, when I have some time, I will start doing things. No, it has to be incorporated in everything that we do. So, what we see in this chapter is that the quality of the mindset that will help us reveal what self is, what the truth is, and what death is, right? And I see my own guru, Mahan, the kind of intensity that he had from 11 years old as a young boy. So when I read his history, when he was narrating the story, it reminded me of the Nachiketa that I saw in my guru, Guru Mahan, and how he intensified that, until the age of, in 19, 30 something, he really intensified and he acquired that knowledge. And when he got that knowledge, he understood the truth and started sharing this liberally. So what did I learn from them? It's actually one needs to have the patience, not rush and do things. And that persistence, right? Continuously, relentlessly search for this knowledge. Times we get distracted, we get maybe health challenges, financial challenges, jobs, whatever, relationships, but you still pursue that truth, right? That every day allocating time for yourself, for the introspection, contemplation, reflection, and meditation. Perseverance is also really important. Namala Sola, the Vedapadiyaga, we have to really, there are times that people challenge you, give us hard time. There are times people praise you, we get carried away. All that we need to kind of quieten down through this introspective mindset. We have to learn to be not to be distracted. And we saw earlier, no, Lord Yama was distracting him with all kinds of alluring things. Okay, I give you good health. So sometimes we have, health challenges. We say, Lord Yama will say, okay, don't ask me this question. I'll make your health better. If it is Nachiketa will say, no, I don't want this. You just give me the truth. The disease will look after itself because that's his course. Sometimes we have financial difficulties. We'll pray for financial, Lord Yama comes, okay, I give you this. Don't ask this question. I'll give you some money. So in our lives, all these things happen. But having the Nachiketa kind of mindset, nope, I want that truth. I don't want to be decoupled from that truth, right? And sometimes the moments are very, very difficult. But that conversation with the divinity, the oneness with the divinity, right, helps us to even overcome those challenges. And ultimately, we see that, we become transcendental and the knowledge is revealed to us. So for me, that if one wants to realize the truth, the mindset is so important. The mindset in the first boon of caringness and willing to share, giving the goodness and the gratitude to the people that supported us, including nature and including the divinity that is embedded in us. You know, the boon too tells us about how we should intensify that inner journey of that introspection, contemplation, reflection, meditation, that Nachiketa fire, harnessing that Nachiketa fire in all of us, but not being caught up with this heavenly, wonderful life that, but the third boon is to continuously search for the truth, discover the truth, realize the truth, and not be distracted in anything that we do. If we are able to do that, then you see that the doors of part one, chapter two will start revealing to us, what the kind of knowledge and the jnana that helps us transition this mortal to the immortal, the finite to infiniteness, that transitoriness to that eternality. So you see that we start experience the mind starts lifting its game to realize that what that truth is. So this is what I wanted to share with you. Uh, Now Lord Yama said, okay, this boy is unique. I have to reveal to him what this self is, why some people get it, why some people don't get it. And you'll see next week I will cover the knowledge and the lessons that Lord Yama teaches Nachiketa to be, know the answer to the question that he posed. Sandosham to all of you.